Shalom friends, welcome. This is a special Shabbat dedicated to Human Rights Shabbat in accordance to Human Rights Day that will take place on Tuesday. We have several other things to commemorate and mention. So first, welcome, also J-Kids activities. So let's start with Hine ma tov u'ma na'im, how good and pleasant it is for brothers and sisters to dwell together.
הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת כולם גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת כולם גם יחד. הנה מה טוב, 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 שבת כולם גם יחד.
We are in page 118, the lighting of the candles. May this light shine upon us and bring us the sacredness of Shabbat. I'd like to invite Melinda and Noam to come forward and light the candles for us.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat. Baruch atah, blessed are you, eternal our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with his mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the light of Shabbat. As these candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us, as their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light. So may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light. O source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us to find knowledge by which to live. Lead us to take the words we shall speak into our hearts and our lives. In the spirit of our ancient tradition, which unites and sanctifies the house of Israel in all lands and all ages, we welcome the Shabbat by kindling these lights.
Jess.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav,
Page 130, come, let us sing joyously to God. Raise a shout for our rock and deliverer. Lechu neranena ladonai.
Lechu neranena ladonai. Lechu neranena ladonai. Ladonai, ladonai. Naria letzor yishenu. Naria letzor yishenu. Yishenu. Nekama vana betoda. Adma vana betoda. Adma Torah, Bismirot, Narialo, Bismirot, Narialo, Bismirot, Narialo, Bismirot, Narialo, Narialo.
132, please join me for the Hebrew, Psalm 97, 132. Adonai malach tagel haaretz, ismechu iyim rabim. ענן וערפל סביביו, צדק ומשפט מכון כסאו. אוהבי אדוני שנאו רע, שומר נפשות חסידיו, מיד רשעים יצילם. עוזרו על הצדיק, ולישרי לב שמחה. שמחו צדיקים באדוני, והודו לזכר קודשו. Page 133. The Eternal One is sovereign, let the earth exult and the many islands rejoice. Dense clouds are around God, righteousness and justice are the base of God's throne. O you who love God, hate evil, God guard the lives of your loyal ones, saving them from the hand of the wicked. Light this song for the righteous, radiance for the upright. O you righteous, rejoice in the eternal, acclaim God's holy name. 135. Adonai malach irgazu amim, yoshev keruvim kanut haaretz, Adonai betzion gadol, ורם הוא על כל העמים. יודו שמך גדול ונורא, קדוש הוא. ועוז מלך משפט אהב, אתה כוננת מישרים. משפט וצדקה ביעקב, אתה עשית. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להדום רגליו, קדוש הוא. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו. Page 137. Kol Adonai chotzev lavotesh, Kol Adonai yachil midaba, Yachil Adonai midaba kadesh, Kol Adonai yecholel ayalot, ויחשוף יערות ויכלו כולו מכבוד. אדוני למבול ישב וישב אדוני מלך לעולם. אדוני עוז לעמו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום. May God grant strength to our people, may God grant our people peace. Friends, as we are celebrating, commemorating, hey, they started already, you can go. Yeah, I know it's in your calendar, the J Kids. It's in your calendar, right? You can take him, yeah. I'm not making it up. Young Mr. Gilman has J Kids in his calendar, right, Mommy? No, it's okay. Some people take seriously what we do here, mainly when they are 4 or 5 years old. Okay. So I was about to make the point that when we are today celebrating, commemorating Human Rights Shabbat in the context of Human Rights Day, we are not doing it without a context, and the context is that all over the world there is a concern, there is a question, and there is a struggle that hasn't been yet set about when on the one side there's human rights and our shared liberal humanistic tradition, on the other side, one side and the other side there is fundamentalism. And that's crossing civilizations and cultures and countries. You find it in a variety of places. We are not the audience in this game. We are also not the referee. We are players. We are team members, and we are team members in the Jewish team. So as we are concerned about the violation of human rights wherever they are, mainly we are concerned about violation of human rights in this country and in Israel, and that's the voice that we shall bring. We are also not alone. We are part of a wide front of religious organizations who stand on the side of life, of liberty, of equality, and of human dignity. And to express how widespread is this struggle, I want to, before the Lechadodi, share with you a poem that comes from Iran. Now, I cannot pronounce the name of the poet, but a song called Baraya, and it was it has become popular in the net 2-3 months ago. Obviously it was banned in Iran, and this is the free translation of the thing. If you don't know, in Iran there is a big movement for human rights and for liberation now, and this poem tries to capture why are we in the streets. Now we, the Jews, we have a special thing with the Persian people, the Iranian, and we celebrated Purim some 3 weeks ago, so it is relevant to hear those voices who come from Iran asking for liberation. They are relevant to us. So here's the song. Why? Why are we fighting? For the dance in the alley, for breaking the taboo of kissing in public, for our sisters, my sisters and yours, for the change in the minds of the fanatics, for a father shame of empty pockets, for the longing for normal life, for the dreams of the dumpster kids, for this command economy, for this polluted air, for the dying Tehran landmark trees, for the extincting Persian cheetah, for the unjustly banned street dogs. In Iran, you have to get a special license if you want to have a dog, and it's the government is pushing against it. For the non-stop tears, for the lost of down passengers, for the faces that smile no more, for the school kids who are the future, for this forced road to paradise, for the jailed beautiful minds, for the neglected Afghan refugee kids, for this list that goes on and on, for this meaningless hostile chants, for the rubbles and the bright built houses, for feeling peace of mind, for the rise of the sun after the long-lasting nights, for men, women, homeland, prosperity, for the girl who wishes to be a boy, and for women, life and freedom. So I thought it's relevant just to show that mainly all struggles for human dignity are the same, because basically people want the same, not to be oppressed. And that's crossing boundaries of religion and ethnicity and so on. So with that, we are very fortunate to be here in free, new South Africa and celebrate and commemorate human rights and the path that it takes there. And with that, may we look on what bothers us today and say, at least what bothers us today bothers us in a free society. It's not that we have everything that bothers us, and on top of it, we are living not in a free society. Thank God for that. People like to complain about South Africa. Let me say it in a million times. South Africa is a blessed place. And one of the indications is that the police cannot knock on your door at night, come fetch you while the neighbors come to see how they take you away to state custody. Appreciate the fact that we are living in a free society. There's a lot to work on, but there's also a lot to be gratitude. So let's be gratitude for that. And I hope you had a good week, as much as it was. Anyhow, it's now done. Let us take a deep breath in and deep breath out. Prepare the space for the Shabbat, for this week. 138, 139, Lecha Dodi.
Sikalela, Israel agiti. Sikalela, Israel agiti. Ela tatwa ngalamakala kachane. Ela tatwa ngalamakala kachane. Lekadodi, likakala, pene Shabbat. Zachor, Edibor Echad, Ishmianu, El Hamuchad, Adonai Echad, Ushemo Echad, Shemu Tiferet, Velitila, Lechadodi, Likatala, Pene Shabbat. Segula, boi chala, lechadodi,
A psalm, a song for the Shabbat. It is good to praise God and to sing hymns to your name, O Most High. To proclaim your steadfast love at daybreak and your faithfulness each night. Mizmor Shir.
מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך העליון, ולזמר לשמך העליון. להגיד בבוקר חסדך, באמונתך בלילות, עלי עשור, עלי נווה, עלי היגיון בחינוך. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך העליון, ולזמר לשמך העליון. שימחתני אדוני בפועלך, במעשה ידיך רנן. מגנו מעשיך אדוני, מאוד עמקו מחשבותיך. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך העליון, ולזמר לשמך העליון.
When justice burns within us like a flaming fire, where love evokes willing sacrifice from us, when to the lustful measure of selfless devotion we demonstrate our belief in the ultimate triumph of truth and righteousness, then your goodness enters our lives, and we can begin to change the world. And then you live in our hearts, and we, through righteousness, behold your presence. Friends, we will conclude the Kabbalat Shabbat section before we go into the evening section with Tzadik Atamar, and straight after with Mikolot Maim Rabim. Then we are going to do something that we haven't done for a while. I'm going to share the pulpit with a lay reader that hasn't been done for a while. I'm glad. And it's very therapeutic and important for us that you'll start seeing other people on the pulpit. Mickey and Andrew have farewelled several times, but still we are happy that you're here. However, I have a feeling that might be a bit more final as a farewell. Who knows? Who knows? So come forward. I wish for you that it's not the end, and there will be plenty of occasions for Mickey to lead the service, for you to partake in what we have to offer. So Tzadik Atamar, Mikolot Maim Rabim, and then the Baruch Hu. I'll come again after Amida.
Tzadik Atamar yifrach, yifrach, Tzadik Atamar yifrach, Keres, Keres, Bavanon yizke, Keres, Bavanon yizke. Shtulim, Shtulim, bevet, bevet Adonai, Chasrot Eloheinu, Chasrot Eloheinu. Od Yenuvon, Yenuvon Beseva, Od Yenuvon Beseva, Deshenim, Deshenim Veranani, Deshenim Verananim Iyu. Lehagid ki yashar, lehagid ki yashar Adonai. Tzuri, Tzuri velo havlat abo.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. So a few weeks ago, I asked Rabbi if I might have the privilege of leading part of the service tonight. And it's as Rabbi says, for a while we did have lay readers contributing, and it seems to have disappeared. And maybe just if Rabbi's on leave or unfortunately sick, and on the high holy days. And it doesn't have to be coming up and leading a part of the service. It might be that you come across a reading that you feel that you really would like to share with the community. So I'd really like to encourage people to come forward and just use your voices, because we're a community. Yes, we are leaving next Thursday. I'm going for a full 6 months. Andrew's going to come back in August for Limud. And I didn't realize when I first asked that it was Human Rights Day. And yesterday I had the privilege of taking a group of my Lifeline colleagues around the Holocaust and Genocide Center, where when I'm in Joburg, I'm privileged to guide adults and often school groups. And it was really interesting that I didn't expect them to know a huge amount of about the Holocaust, but that they actually said to me, I didn't realize that, how close Rwanda is, and that Rwanda happened at the time of the first democratic elections, exactly at that time. The first democratic elections in South Africa. So all of the world's media was focused on South Africa as the genocide broke out in Rwanda, and so it took a little while for the world to realize what was happening there. So I have found a couple of extra readings, and I'd like to read one of them before we move into Barachu. When evil darkens our world, let us be the bearers of light. When fists are clenched in self-righteous rage, let our hands be open for the sake of peace. When injustice slams doors on the ill, the poor, the old, and the stranger, let us pry the doors open. Where shelter is lacking, let us be builders. Where food and clothing are needed, let us be providers. Where knowledge is denied, let us be champions of learning. When dissent is stifled, let our voices speak truth to power. When the earth and its creatures are threatened, let us be their guardians. When bias, greed, and bigotry erode our country's values, let us proclaim liberty throughout the land. In the places where no one acts like a human being, let us bring courage, let us bring compassion, let us bring humanity. Page 146. Please stand. Baruch hu et Adonai hamavorach, Baruch Adonai hamvorach, leolam vo'ed. Please be seated. Page 1. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim, b'chokhmah potech she'arim, uvetuvdanu mishnah itim, mecha'alif et hazma'anim, umesadeh et hakochavim, b'mishmoratehem barachia kirotzono. Borei yom v'layla, golel or mifnei choshek, v'choshef mishnei or. Uma'avir yom uvei layla, umavdil bein yom uvein layla, Adonai tzavaot shemo. El chai v'chayom, tamid yimlach aleinu le'olam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai ha'amariv aravim. Page 150. Avat olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha, Ahavta, Torah, Umitzvot, Chukim, Umishpatim, Otanu, Limadata, Al kein Adonai Eloheinu, b'shoch beinu v'kumeinu, nasiach b'chuchecha, v'nismak b'divrei, Toratecha, ki hem chayenu, ve'arech Yomenu, uvahem nege yomam v'layla. V'yavtecha el tasim imenu le'olamim. Baruch atah Adonai ohev amo Yisrael. Page 152.
Shema Yisrael, Baruch Shem Kevod, Shem Kevod, Malchuto Leolam, Leolam Vaed.
Page 154. Behafta et Adonai Elohecha, b'chal levavecha, uv'chal nafshecha, uv'chal miodecha. V'hayu hadvarim ha'ele, asher anochi mitzavacha hayom al levavecha. V'shinam tom levanecha v'diberet habam, b'shiftecha b'veitecha, uv'letecha v'derech, uv'shapacha uv'kumecha. Ukashar tom leot al yadecha, v'hayu letotafot beinenecha, uchetavtom al mezuzot beitecha, uv'isharecha. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe lemor, daber el bnei Yisrael, v'armata alehem, v'asu lahem tzitzit, al kanfei b'divdeihem l'doratam, v'natnu al tzitzit, han kanfei patil techelet. V'haya lachem l'tzitzit, uritem oto uzrachetem, et kol mitzvoto, Adonai v'yisitem otam. V'lo taturu v'acharei levavachem, v'acharei anechem, asher atam zornim v'achareichem. Lema'an tizkaru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai, v'yetem kadoshim leloechem, ani Adonai Elohechem, asher otzeiti etchem meretz Mitzrayim, liot lachem lelohim, ani Adonai Elohechem. Top of 156. Emet v'emunot kol zot v'chayam aleinu, ki hu Adonai Eloheinu, v'ein zulato, v'anachnu Yisroel amo. Page 157, and I thought this was appropriate for today. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, there is one God in heaven and earth. The high heavens declare your glory. May the earth reveal your justice and love. From bondage in Egypt we were delivered. At Sinai we bound ourselves to your way. Inspired by prophets and instructed by sages, time and again we overcame oppressive forces. Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed. Let us continue to work for the day when the nations will be one and at peace. Then shall we rejoice as Israel did, singing on the shores of the sea.
Mi chamocha, v'elim Adonai, mi chamocha, nida b'kodesh, Torah tehilot, osef eleh, Torah tehilot, osef eleh. Malchutecha ra'uvanecha, v'kayam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam zeh. Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed, v'nevenema tifada. Adonai et Yaakov ugalo, miyad chazak b'imenu. Baruch atah Adonai
Page 162, Vishamru. Sorry, Yismechu. Can't find the Yismechu.
Sorry about that. Yumbity bum bum bye, Shabbat, Shabbat. Yumbity bum bum bye, Shabbat, Shabbat. Yumbity bum bum bye, Shabbat, Shabbat. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat. Yismachu, Yismachu b'malchutcha. Yismachu, Yismachu b'malchutcha. Shomrei Shabbat, Shomrei Shabbat, Ukureo negone Shabbat. Shomrei Shabbat, Shomrei Shabbat, Ukureo negone Shabbat. Mekadeshei Shevim, Kulam yipeu v'yiptangu, mituvecha Shabbat, Shabbat. Yismachu, Yismachu b'malchutcha. Yismachu, Yismachu b'malchutcha. Shomrei Shabbat, Shomrei Shabbat, Ukureo negone Shabbat. Shomrei Shabbat, Shomrei Shabbat, Ukureo negone Shabbat. Ve'ol shevei ratzito bo, ratzito bo v'kidashta. Chemdat yamimot u'karata, sechel ma'aseh v'reshit. Yismachu, Yismachu b'malchutcha. Yismachu, Yismachu b'malchutcha. Shomrei Shabbat, Shomrei Shabbat, Ukureo negone Shabbat. Shomrei Shabbat, Shomrei Shabbat, Ukureo negone Shabbat.
Before we move to the Amidah, the source of all might is exalted through justice. Hear the words of the Eternal. What need have I of all your sacrifices, says Adonai? I am sated with the burnt offerings of rams, the suet of fatlings, the blood of bulls. In lambs and he-goats I take no delight. They have become a burden to me. I cannot endure them. And when you lift up your hands, I will turn my eyes away from you, though you pray at length. I will not listen. Your hands are stained with crime. Wash yourselves clean. Put your evil doings away from my sight. Cease to do evil, learn to do good. Devote yourselves to justice, defend the oppressed. Uphold the rights of the orphan, plead the cause of the widow, and let justice roll down like waters, righteousness like a mighty stream. Is somebody opening the ark? Page 164. Page 164.
Adonai sifes haifetzoku fia kita ilater. Eternal God, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu Avotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Oel HaGadol HaGibor VaHanor, El Elyon Gomer Chasadim Tovim, V'konei HaKol, V'zochei Chazdei Avot V'Emaot, U'mivula Lifnei B'neihem, למען שמו באחווה, מלך עוזר ומשיח מגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם בזרע שרה. 168. אתה גיבור לי עולם אדוני, לחיי מתים אתה רב להושיח, משיב הרוח ומרעית הגשם, מזריח השמש ומרעית הטל, מחכה חיים בחסד, בחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, סומק נופלים, רופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, וכמלכי אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומדומה לך, מלך ממת ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות מתים, ברוך אתה אדוני, לחיי המתים. 170. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, קדושים בכל יום, יהללוך סלע, ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש. 172. אתה קידשת את יום השביעי לשמך, תכלית מעשה שמיים בארץ, וברכתו מכל הימים, וקידשת מכל הזמנים, וכן כתוב בתורתך. ויחולו השמיים ובארץ בכל צבאם, ויכל אלוהים ביום השביעי מלאכתו אשר עשה. וישבות ביום השביעי וכל מלאכתו אשר עשה. ויברך אלוהים את יום השביעי וקדש אותו, כי בו שבת מכל מלאכתו אשר ברא אלוהים לעשות. אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, רצה במנוחתנו, קדשנו במצוותיך ותנהגנו בתורתך. סבנו מטובך ושמחנו בשורתך, וטהר ליבנו להבטחה באמת, והנחילנו אדוני אלוהינו באהבה ורצון שבת קודשך. וינוחו בו ישראל מקדש שמך, ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. In the middle of page 174, because Nisan starts next week, Pesach is almost upon us. Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avotenu ya'aleh ya'avor v'zichronenu v'zichron kol amecha Beit Yisrael lefanecha l'tova l'cheinu l'chesed u'l'rachamim l'chaim u'l'shalom bayom rosh hachodesh hazeh zachrenu Adonai Eloheinu bo l'tova v'nakdenu vo l'livracha v'hoshienu vo l'chaim. Amen. Top of 176. Modim anachnu lach, she'atu adanu Eloheinu, ve'Elohei avotenu, le'olam bo'et, suchayenu magen yishenu, התולדו ועודו נודה לך ונזפה תהילתך אחיינו חמסורים בידיך ועל נשמותינו הקדועות לך ועל ניסיך שבכל יום עמנו ועל נפלותיך וטובתך שבכל עת ערב הבוקר וצהריים הטוב כי לא חלו רחמך והמרחם כי לא תמו חסדך מעולם קיווינו לך והכולם יתברך ויתרומם משמך מלאכנו תמיד לעולם ועד בכל החיים יודעך סלע והעלו את שמך באמת האל ישועתנו ואת צרכנו סלע ברוך אתה אדוני הטוב שמך ולא נאה להודות. Shalom Rav on 178.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki atahu melech Adon lechol hashalom. Ki atahu melech Adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov b'necha levarech et amcha Yisrael b'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם.
Baruch atah Adonai ha'amar v'varech et amo Yisrael b'shalom. And in the middle of page 179, Lo ya'asu gori el gori cherev, v'lo yilamdu od milchama. Don't stop after beating the swords into plowshares. Don't stop. Go on beating and make musical instruments out of them. Whoever wants to make war again will have to turn them into plowshares first.
So just a moment to reflect on the fact that Tuesday is Human Rights Day and what perhaps our personal wishes are for the conflicts that we know are going on, that we would like peace in this country on Monday. And one day, that wonderful dream of peace and justice and humanity for all the world. And then Lee will bring us back together in Oseh Shalom.
Shalom shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael.
Good. So I'd like to thank Mickey and to encourage all those who would like to partake in leading the services to approach me and the team. And as Mickey said wisely, you don't have to take the entire Shema or the entire Amidah. You can say, I'd like to read a poem or something. We are always happy because it's crucial that there will be a variety of voices heard from the pulpit. I'm reading out of page 371, the prayer for the sick, and then I'll invite you to mention names, and the choir will sing. Then Samuel will sing the Gam Ki Elech, although if I walk, even if I walk, him. משברך אבותינו ואמותינו אברהם יצחק ויעקב שרה רבקה רחל ולאה, ויברך את החולים. הקדוש ברוך הוא ימלא רחמים עליהם, להחלימם, לרפאותם, להחזיקם, וישלח להם מהרה רפואה, רפואה שלמה מן השמיים, רפואת הנפש, רפואת הגוף, השתה בעגלה בזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן. May the one who blessed our ancestors Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless and heal those who are ill. May the Blessed Holy One be filled with compassion, for their health to be restored, for the strength to be revived. May God swiftly send them a complete renewal of body and spirit. And let us say, Amen. If you'd like to mention people, please do so. Noted. Noted. Thank you. Friends, when I came to South Africa 10 years ago, one of the first people I've met and who actually facilitated my coming here, was crucial in facilitating my coming here, was David Bilshitz. Already then he was already a professor sitting in Cornhill in a research institution for human rights. In Cornhill, part of the campus, specifically in the Old Fort, and the way in which David Bilchit introduced to me South Africa, the story of South Africa, Cornhill as a symbol for that, as a token for that, it made great impression on me and my understanding of the conflict and of the situation. And as I'm looking 10 years later, I have a strong feeling that the road ahead of us is still haven't been traveled, to say the least, that it is on us to put right, not only here in South Africa what needs to put right in the sense of human rights, but also the ability of South Africans in general, South African Jews in particular, and South African progressive Jews specifically, to do our duty when it comes to deliver the message of New South Africa into the bleeding conflict of the Middle East. And I'm sure that in the years to come, David, his husband Ruvi, and others will partake in that endeavor of creating the new constitution and the new political setting for the Middle East, same as Jews has been involved here during the late 80s, Just Chaskelson and others, in creating the framework and the political solution for New South Africa. To me, David Bilchit represents the, okay, thanks, kids, okay. You can take them to my study. We need another 10 minutes, Barry, and the Benzvies. 10 minutes, 15 maybe. Go to my study, show them my study. Yeah. So as I was saying, David represents for me this, the new generation who grew up into New South Africa, whose most formative experience is voting in 1990, or who grew up into the 90s and they were shaped by it. And in a way, this is the formative generation who still haven't yet spoken. The voice of this generation hasn't yet been heard in many ways, and we are waiting for the roar to come forward. So as a practice to this roar, I've asked David to present to us today some of his notions about the state of human rights on his capacity as a professional, but also as an engaged Jew who is a congregant here and has what to say. Professor David Bilchit, please.
Thanks very much to the Rabbi for the wonderful introduction, and Shabbat Shalom to everyone. Indeed, 1994 was a formative moment in my life, and I'm sure many other people's lives. I'm going to start with this week's Torah portion with the commandment which starts that on the seventh day one shall have a complete rest on the Sabbath, and that one shall kindle no fire throughout one's dwelling places. The parsha moves on to a command by every person to bring material gifts of various kinds, such as gold, silver, and copper, to create the various elements of the tabernacle, including the Ark of the Covenant. The response was incredibly overwhelming, to the point where Moses at a certain point had to tell the people that no man or woman should bring any more gifts to build the sanctuary. And we also have a description of the incredible artisanship that went into the creation of the tabernacle. Now, a very interesting feature on which I want to focus is the fact that at the center of this construction is what's called the Holy of Holies, which contains the Holy Ark. On the Ark are two angelic-like structures called cherubim, that are made of pure gold at either end. There is in between the cherubim, and they have kind of their wings holding that space, a space. And below the space is a cabinet in which there is empty space. In that empty space was placed a stone tablet. And on that stone tablet were the engravings of God's law at the center. The ark we have today in our synagogues is in some ways similar, in that it also contains a space at the heart of our synagogue, and that heart of our synagogue contains the Torah. Now, the great Torah commentator Aviva Zornberg raises the question. There is a certain shock at the notion that a humanly created statuesque figure lies at the heart of the Holy of Holies. In a sense, how could there be such a statue of gold at the heart of our community? In many ways, this seems to be parallel to the story we read last week about the golden calf. In that story, people were also asked to contribute their gold and jewelry, and what was created was a solid block of gold in the form of a calf. The people then began to dance and to worship this calf. In both cases, we have a gold entity created from the contributions of the people. What then is the difference between the golden calf and the golden cherubim? Zornberg writes that the difference lies in the space in between. In the calf, what we have is just a solid block of gold with the image of a calf. The gold is not the sacred object. In the ark, the gold is not the sacred object. Rather, it frames the sacred space, the hollow out of which God's word will speak. We have a central contrast that exists in the sphere. The golden calf has the gold or material substance as the essence, as the very thing that is to be worshipped. However, we are taught with the ark that whilst materiality is important, the gold is still there, it can never be the essence of what should be worshipped. Rather, it is the moral law and spiritual injunctions we are given which are at the center of our yearnings and the heart of our community. Now, there are many features to this idea which I could develop, but you may be asking why I've spoken so much about the portion at the beginning of a sermon relating to Human Rights Day. The rabbi asked me to engage with the state of fundamental or human rights in South Africa today, and I cannot, of course, in the space of a short 10 to 15-minute sermon, do an exhaustive engagement with all the different rights in our Bill of Rights and what is happening with them. Some of you have also asked me to speak about Israel, but I'm going to engage on that question at the AGM on Thursday night. I'm going to give a short address there, so I look forward to engaging those of you who are interested in that topic. Tonight I'm going to focus on South Africa, and I hope, as you will see, to show that the messages in this portion of the week are in fact very relevant to our circumstances in South Africa today and the fundamental rights that we have. At the heart of the South African Constitution is the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights is in fact similar to the stone tablet of the Torah at the center of the Ark, for it lays out the foundational principles, values, and entitlements that govern the South African political community. It is, in a sense, the immaterial heart of our Constitution, and it expresses its very purpose. Everything else in the Constitution is absolutely crucial, but it is about how we give effect to those values through the structures of the state, such as the legislature, the executive, the judiciary, and Chapter 9 institutions, as well as our provinces. The fundamental rights at the heart of our Constitution are a direct response to the indignities and injustices that occurred in the past of South Africa. The first right in our Constitution is the right to equality and non-discrimination, and the right is clearly designed to address the central wrong at the heart of South African history, namely the entrenchment of discrimination on grounds of race throughout the society and the engineering of a hierarchical society based on racial inequities. The equality right takes a firm stance, not only against racial discrimination, but also discrimination on all grounds relating to central characteristics of our identities, such as sex, gender, sexual orientation, age, religion, and much else. The second right in the Constitution is the right to dignity, which seeks to recognize the value and worth of every person. And that right, too, stands in stark contrast to the way in which black people were treated during apartheid. The Constitution then goes on to enumerate a range of other rights. Many of these express the freedoms we expect in society, for instance, the right to freedom of association and freedom of speech and freedom of assembly are a strict counter to the oppressive nature of the apartheid regime. In particular, at this point, prior to the 21st of March, we remember that Human Rights Day comes to commemorate the shooting of a group of unarmed protesters in Sharpeville against the oppressive pass laws that restricted the freedom of movement of black people. The police killed 69 people and injured 180 people, many of whom were indeed fleeing, and they were shot in the back. We're going to pause for a moment of silence for those people. Our Constitution also includes a range of socio-economic rights, such as the right to have access to adequate housing, the right to have sufficient food and water, and access to healthcare. These came to counteract the past in which these basic necessities were not guaranteed to black people and in which black people were consigned to an economic underclass. These rights are wonderful ideals and give expression beautifully to the universality of humanity, and that despite our differences, we all share a wonderful sense of our own worth. They are also, as I've tried to show, very much a statement by the South African community that at the heart of our society there is a message of never again, a message we can very much relate to in the Jewish community. Never again will there be a state where some people will be treated in an inferior way simply on the basis of their race. Never again will that occur on the basis of sex or any other irrelevant characteristic that one may possess. Never again will people be denied basic freedoms or necessities. Well, how are we doing in this regard? Despite all the negativity currently in South Africa, I agree with the rabbi that we also must focus on the significant gains that have been achieved since we became a democracy. I want to relate a story based on a recent experience of mine that represents a stark contrast to what occurred in Sharpeville and in the 1980s South Africa. In late November, I was the main organizer of a major event in South Africa where we brought the world of constitutional lawyers to Johannesburg. The event was called the World Congress of Constitutional Law, and we had 653 people register from 71 countries. And as part of the event, I felt it was really important that we take them to Constitution Hill and to see some of the history of South Africa at the Constitutional Court. To ensure they were safe, we met with a very large gathering of security personnel, including private companies, the local metropolitan police, and the provincial police. At the time, there was an ongoing protest in front of the Constitutional Court by a group of older women organized by the Kulumani support group. They were requesting reparations for the gross human rights violations they suffered during the apartheid regime, and they had not received anything. One security cluster member raised his hand and said, "To ensure the safety of this group of people coming from all over, we can't have any incidents, and you must go to court and acquire an interdict to remove the women from protesting in front of the Constitutional Court." Now, as a strong defender of fundamental rights, I was, of course, horrified and about to raise my hand and say, well, we're not going to do anything of the sort. But the important thing is, I did not have to. The highest ranking police person in the room from the Provincial Operational Command, Colonel Masia, who is in charge of event security in the province, quietly said, "We are now a constitutional democracy, and the people outside the court have a guaranteed right to protest and defend their rights. The police will ensure this event's security whilst respecting these women's right to protest." That was an incredible moment for me. The police, as we know, do not often embrace fully the implications of the Bill of Rights. But having a senior police official directly referencing the Bill of Rights and refusing to act in a way contrary to it highlighted the transformative power of our Constitution and how it is changing the mindset in some ways at the senior levels of governance in this country. We also had an attempt by a foreign government, who will remain nameless, to interfere with the decision-making processes of the International Association of Constitutional Law at this Congress. And this foreign government, a very powerful country, put pressure on my university and the government on a very sensitive matter. Yet in both cases, there was a complete defense of freedom of association, and the International Association of Constitutional Law was allowed to make its own decisions without any interference. It is thus quite clear that in the area of freedom, South Africa has made significant strides. We may see this tested on Monday with the EFF protests. I hope we will find a balance between peaceful protest and ensuring individuals have the right not to join those protests. In terms of equality, this is indeed a work in progress. It is no doubt the case that formal legal barriers relating to discrimination on multiple grounds, including race, sex, and sexual orientation, have been significantly removed. It is particularly noteworthy, for instance, how our constitutional order was one of the first to include non-discrimination on grounds of sexual orientation, and that has led South Africa to become a beacon on the continent, first decriminalizing same-sex sexuality and then eventually recognizing same-sex marriage. Speaking in shul, we are also a country with incredible religious diversity, and yet we have one of the most expansive senses of religious freedom in the world. No Jew can claim any sense of interference with our ability to express our religious identity. And I have found generally people and institutions incredibly respectful, for instance, of our holidays. I hope these positives help to some way to counterbalance all the negativity. Yet starkly, in many ways, our fundamental rights remain imperfectly realized. Whilst gains have been made in removing discrimination in law, many discriminatory attitudes and behaviors remain. Taking sex and gender, for instance, women do not experience formal disabilities, yet we have amongst the highest incidents of gender-based violence in the world. A report I read stated that we had almost 11,000 cases of rape reported in the first quarter of 2022. 11,000. And those are simply the reported statistics. Without addressing the scourge, gender equality cannot become a full reality. And I'm thankful for a conversation last night at Taste of Limud with Caroline for impressing on me the importance of discussing this issue. Relatedly, in relation to bodily integrity, we see one of the highest crime rates in the world, and we have also seen the emergence of forms of discrimination that have shifted. Consider, for instance, the horrific emergence in our country of a terrible xenophobia across our society. And there's no leadership. Virtually all our political parties play into and intensify the xenophobia. And even the Constitutional Court, which has in general been a beacon in this area, one would expect more from it, gave an inexplicable decision last year, upholding a law that prevented the admission of legal practitioners to practice in this country if they were not citizens or permanent residents. In relation to socioeconomic rights, we are failing miserably. This week, the health ombudsperson, Professor Malagapuru Makgoba, reported on the horrific conditions in the Rahima Musa Hospital. I'm sure many of you heard about it. He described how pregnant women were sleeping on the floor, the dirt and filth in the hospital, and how sewage was spilling out all over. The health care available to the vast majority of our people is woefully inadequate. And sadly, I can personally attest to how my beloved domestic worker of many years passed on last year, and she was given paracetamol when suffering from great pain due to terminal cancer. We have people suffering from malnourishment diseases in this country of plenty and languishing on waiting lists in the hope of a decent home which never arrives. Whilst we have expanded access to education across the country, the quality thereof is woefully inadequate. So what is to be done? It was no doubt the case that our government faced massive challenges when taking over in 1994 and still does. Yet in many ways, part of the reasons for our failures thus far are the fact that our leaders don't seem to be prioritizing the interests of the least well off. In fact, we see the rampant attempts to utilize the state for personal gain and the failure of public morality to place the good of the community above one's personal self-interest. Indeed, as we see in our portion, we see the worship of gold as being for some people, including senior leaders in our country, as having become the essence of what drives them. They have in many ways forgotten their mission and their oath of office, which is to place the Constitution and fundamental rights above their own material gain. The Torah portion we read this week also strongly directs us to look at the relationship between the ideals we have and the need to ensure the concrete realization thereof. Indeed, a lot of the details we read in the portion this week are actually quite technical about the process of construction of the Mishkan and all that goes along with it. A lot of this is quite boring to read, but the message is quite clear. If you want to realize your ideals or goals, you have to pay attention carefully to building and constructing institutions and enabling the concrete realization of these ideals. Technical detail matters. In our context, the building of strong, credible, capacitated state institutions is absolutely vital for the process of realizing fundamental rights. Unfortunately, as was documented this week in the report I referenced, the government was prepared to appoint a wholly unsuitable CEO to head this Rahima Musa hospital without regard to her qualifications. Apart from the reality of corruption, the disasters that have beset our national airline, electricity company, our hospitals and schools in some measure relate to the problem of the lack of skills in our country and the willingness to appoint people to positions without regard to their ability to run those positions. Now, I do not want to be understood to be making a point against the need for racial and sex transformation in our leadership, but doing so, in my view, certainly today, is compatible with appointing people with an ethical commitment as well as expertise to achieving and ensuring that they do what they are tasked to do. A very important message from our portion this week is the way in which the people of the community were motivated by the desire to contribute and came together to give even more than was required in order to ensure the tabernacle was constructed. During the course of the struggle against apartheid, many people, including many people from this shul, from across different parts of society, were willing to contribute not only finances, but their own skills, income, and in many cases their lives to address the injustices that were rife in our society. Unfortunately, although there are many, many people doing wonderful work in South Africa today, that spirit of contribution to the wider good of the community seems to have, in the post-apartheid era, departed from many in the political sphere. It is often said that we get the government and governance that we deserve. Our strength in this country is that we have wonderful people that exist across every single community. The only possible savior from the low point South Africa is in many ways, is for each of us within each of our spheres and each of doing whatever is possible for us to come together and to contribute to making a success of this country. Ultimately, the state of fundamental rights and their realization is in our hands. We need ultimately to reconfigure the sense of values and mission in our society if we are to achieve those laudable ideals that were placed in our Holy of Holies, the Bill of Rights. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Usually David doesn't stay much because his parents wait him for Shabbat. So if you want to catch him for a second, or come to the AGM. Thank you for that. We're moving to the Kaddish 598. I'd like to invite Diane Fine from the Care Committee to introduce the Kaddish today. Tell Mr. Gilman, go tell the kids 5 minutes.
Tonight before I do that, remember our people who suffered and died so that we could be free and secure. May their memory be more than a distant shadow. For their dreams left unfulfilled and lives taken too soon, we remember. Remember our brothers and sisters whose sacrifice kept the dream of democracy and justice alive. May their courage be an inspiration and strength. For life cut short and vision unrealized, we remember. Remember the fallen of our armed services, the victims of terror and tragedy. May the darkness of their loss not obscure the light of peace. They were in love with our land and in love with life. For the agony, the tears, the mothers and the fathers, for the children who were and for the children yet to be, we remember. Tonight we mourn with the families of those who lost their lives in the struggle for human rights, both within our country and around the world. These heroes have fought for the progressive values of respect, tolerance, integrity, honesty, inclusivity, and human dignity. In the next few weeks, I will present to you the proposed Code of Ethical Behavior, our Bill of Rights for our community. We want to introduce into our community, and a policy for addressing all forms of harassment, including gender-based violence, including sexual harassment. If anyone's interested in joining an ethics panel, please get in touch with me. We mourn also with the family of Anne Harris, wife of the late Orthodox Chief Rabbi Cyril Harris, who passed away in Israel last Shabbat. Her passing is a great loss to everyone whose lives she touched. We mourn also with Melinda, Erwin, Lily, and Rosa on the passing of their father and grandfather, Max Silverman, just 1 week after the departure of Sybil, his wife of 71 years. Our sincere condolences to Ori Ben-Zeev and family on the passing of his grandmother, Esther Margot Grossbard, who passed away on Saturday the 11th of March in Israel. And we remember those whose yortzites occurred in the past week. Brian Bungie, father of Doug Bungie, Oscar Cohen, father of Anita Fliss, William Fischbach, father of Yvonne Levy, Rhea Francis, mother of Paul Francis, Erna Kamensky, remembered by Leonore Carr, Julius Katz, remembered by Ian Kesley, David Singer, brother of Leonard Singer and Judy Hodis, Molly Smollen, mother of Doug Smollen, grandmother of David Smollen, Olga Sofa, mother of Phyllis Hyde, and Gerald Swiden, brother of Louis Swiden. May their memory be for a blessing.
May the memory be a blessing. The memory is a blessing. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה ועל מעדי יברח חירותי והמליך מלכותי וחייכונו וימחונו וחיי כל בית ישראל בעגלה וזמן קריב ואמרו אמן יהא שמי רבה מבורך לעולם לעלמי עלמיה נתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן עושה שלום עמומיו ויעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל בני אדם ואמרו אמן. Please be seated. Please be seated. Okay.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. As usual, I'm here to announce another Beyond the Boundaries Saturday session. We haven't had one for a while, and we might not for another while. This is in between a period of personal incapacity and going into another period of similar incapacity. So that the dates that has been possible this time around is the 1st of April. So on the 1st of April, we're going to have a Beyond the Boundaries, which, as you may recall, is a session where we can come together and look at things that are neither black or white, but that are, like most of the rest of life, very grey. But we're also going to have some, we can't not have some smiles on the 1st of April. So we're going to be talking about how to make rabbit soup. You will hear more when I think about what will go under that title when we have a time to plan it. But that, if you find that your April Fool's Day is a little bit dull, please remember that at about 11:30, Russell has booked us for the youth lounge, where we will be having a very interesting session on how to make rabbit soup, kosher rabbit soup, as it happens. So let us just ponder that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good evening, Shabbat Shalom. Just a short reminder that Thursday evening is the annual general meeting of Beit Emanuel, and it is a very important occasion. And I do encourage everybody who can to attend, because it determines an evaluation of the past and how we try to go and grapple with the future. It's a very important datum point in any congregation's activities. In addition, we've got David Bilschitz, who has agreed to give us a talk on issues around Israel's potential slide into state capture, which I'm sure is something that is uppermost in our minds when one considers what is happening and the disturbances in Israel itself. So I would really recommend that if only come for David, but stay for the AGM. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, let's be clear about it. If you want to stand for Mencom or to come to Seder Pesach, registration cut this week. Wednesday, right? Wednesday midday for Seder Pesach and for AGA and for standing for Mencom. Don't come and say, we didn't know, can you push us in? Because, yeah, exactly. Come, kids. Come, kids, you represent the other kids who went. We are concluding. Shalom Aleichem, 142. The Brucha has been sponsored by Mickey and Andrew. Thanks for doing that, and keep well. Come, kids, come.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Hayom, Minelech, Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Hayom.
please join us.
Yeah. Good to see you.